Adult learning theory. Applying adult learning theory and engaging clients. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to apply the principles of andrology, adult learning theory, and client interaction. Describe content overload and chunking of information. And understand individual learning preferences as it relates to the delivery of information. Let me first start this discussion by talking in very general terms regarding what I think about when I teach a course. When planning out how I will teach or facilitate a course, I reflect on three important variables. The first variable is content. Am I teaching a quantitative topic, statistics, time value of money, modern portfolio theory? Or is it a qualitative subject? For example, a course in religion, philosophy, or ethics. The content that's going to be delivered really influences how I'm going to be teaching, how I might be facilitating the class. The second variable is the learner. Who is the learner sitting in front of me? What knowledge and experience do the learners bring with them into the classroom? The third variable is motivation. What is the motivation for the student? How ready is the student to learn the material, and just how interested is the student? Framing these three variables helps me determine how I will teach. In our graduate level class and when working with our planning clients, we apply the theory of andragogy. The word andragogy means leading man. And means man. Agogy means leading. So it's a discipline of andrology, means leading man or leading adults. In educating the adult learner, we lean on 6 principles: rich life experience, relevancy, internal motivation, mutual respect, active learning, and reflection. These principles were developed by Malcolm Knowles. Later, other academics added to the theory. When we're working with adults, we realize that they bring a rich life experience with them. Now, this has some important applications for how we teach in the classroom, and certainly how we're going to engage our clients in the office. They already possess rich life experience. We don't need to create the experience. We simply help to pull it together. We point out the interconnections. We show how their prior experiences relate to our new learning content and to the new ideas that we're going to be thinking about. We scaffold the learning on top of what has already been learned. Adults come to us with a problem or a need, a situation that needs to be solved. That creates relevancy in the learning. Adults want the learning to be linked to a relevant issue. They want to gain knowledge that can be applied immediately. The adult learner or the client is generally internally motivated. In the classroom, the adult learner has goals and objectives. For example, the student might seek to earn an advanced degree or acquire a skill set that will enable them to perform better, advance in the workplace, or elevate their professional skill sets. That internal motivation elevates focus. Adults expect to learn within an environment of mutual respect, as they should. Each person's unique with their own rich set of life experiences and knowledge. The adult learning classroom is student-centered. The financial planning office is client-centered. We respect our clients, and in turn, they respect us. There's a social aspect to learning too. As the teacher, we need to create a safe learning environment in the classroom where collaboration takes place. As a planning professional, we need to create that safe, collaborative planning office. Active learning is a key aspect of the adult classroom. We know that experiential hands-on activities promote learning in the classroom, particularly when the activity has real-life relevance. In the planning office, we think about how to get our clients actively involved or vested in the creation and the implementation of their plan. We'll explore the important principle of reflection later in this presentation. Clearly, the concept of andragogy offers valuable information regarding how to teach and lead adult learning and how we can work with our clients. Let's examine the idea of cognitive process. Question for you. How much information can an individual take in at one time? There was an interesting paper written by George Miller in 1956. In that paper, he suggested that the number is 7 plus or minus 2. So he suggested that most adults can store 5 to 9 items in their short-term memory. Now, whether or not that number is exact is less important than the idea. There is limited intake. The adult can only take in so much information at one time. Faculty understand how that works in the classroom, and the idea certainly applies in working with clients. This example comes from one of my prior capstone courses. You can see that the student team suggested numerous prudent planning actions that would improve the client's plan. If you focus on the right-hand column, however, you'll notice that all the actions were assigned to be completed in about a month. This is a good example of client overload, an example of how to shut down your client. There are too many items within too short a time period. Just like in a computer with short-term RAM memory, the client can only take in so much data or deal with so many planning actions. Stretch out the time periods, assign fewer high-priority actions, and then phase in those other items. There was another interesting piece to the paper. The idea was that the number of items that could be kept or processed in short-term memory increased when we start to chunk information. The 7 plus or minus 2 could be raised by chunking. So what do we mean by the word chunking? Let's look at an example. If I gave you 10 to 20 random numbers and asked you to quickly memorize them, then there's a good chance that you would forget some of them. The data is random and the numbers by themselves can be meaningless. But what if we start to group them like a telephone number, 805-493-3410? What if we arrange them in logical groupings, 31, 41, 51, or 4, 8, 16, 32? Chunking the data now increases the number of discrete items that can be held in short-term memory. Each chunk naturally groups together. So how can we use this idea of chunking in practice in engaging our clients? It certainly applies to your meeting agenda. Your meeting is certainly going to start with some welcoming remarks just to get the flow of dialogue going. But then you'll be moving through some important planning topics. Think about how many items you'll put on the agenda. When you're having a conversation, think about organizing your main points with their supporting material. Rather than a disorganized flow of information, make an intentional effort to chunk the supporting data around those 2, 3, or maybe even 4 main items of the discussion. In your written plan or client correspondence, think about making the reading easy. Use headers and subheaders to organize and chunk the data. Bullet pointing allows you to reduce a large number of words into some concrete chunks. Consider showing no more than 3 or 4 items on any one slide when using visual. The idea is to keep the information simple while at the same time leveraging the power of chunking. Here's an example which also came from one of my capstone classes. The idea here is to relegate the detailed financial data, the entire statement of net worth and the statement of cash flows, to the appendices of the written plan, while providing the key numbers within the narrative of the plan. For example, rather than the entire statement of net worth, chunk the total assets, total liabilities, and net worth in the narrative section. On this slide, you see an example of chunking the key cash flow numbers. These cash flow line items are the ones that really impact the client's cash flow situation. Chunking just the major changes to savings and the major expenditures makes an impact on the client. This table is easily understandable. The dollars of savings shown will certainly get the client's attention. Returning again to the idea of cognitive processes, we understand that individuals have preferences for how they receive stimuli. Based on the preference, the mind creates neural pathways, or these neural highways, which promote a quick transfer of stimuli to the brain. When we present material in a way that aligns with the client's preference for taking in information, we take advantage of the way the client receives, directs, and processes information. Preferred learning styles include visual, whether images or written material, auditory, and kinesthetic, or hands-on stimuli. Interestingly enough, our clients generally reveal the way they prefer to receive information by the words they use. For example, if your client keeps saying things like, "I see what you mean," or "I see that," then you know they're probably a visual learner. If you hear phrases like, "I heard you say," or "it sounds like," you have a cue that the person is an auditory learner. If the client says, "That feels right to me," then you have information that this is a hands-on learner who learns best by getting involved. Here's an example of making difficult concepts easy to comprehend, which is always a challenge for the educator. Now, in this example, and by the way, this visual came from a team who was presenting at the 2011 National Competition for Comprehensive Plans, for which I participated as one of the judges. I think the team did a brilliant job of making the concept of transfer tax planning easy to understand. The visual content, which I recreated on this slide, shows that there are two ways to avoid transfer tax, to avoid that tax wall. One way is via a window, and the other is via a door. The window represents the annual gift tax exclusion, and the door being the unified credit and or unlimited marital deduction. As you can see, the beauty of this is that the picture turns on a light bulb for the client by making the complex simple to understand. So, a self-reflection question for you. What are some effective and creative ways that you promote client understanding of difficult concepts? Think about the amount of information that the client can take in and their preferred learning preferences. How can you do that? How will you apply that? The sixth principle in the andragogy discussion was critical reflection. Let's examine the role of critical reflection in adult learning. There is a theory in education called constructivism, and this concept states that learning builds on prior knowledge. It's like standing on someone's shoulders, those who went before us. We construct knowledge by building upon our existing knowledge base. New information is received and processed in combination with the existing knowledge. After processing or reflection, some new information is rejected. Other data is accepted and placed into long-term memory. The new data either augments the existing knowledge base or, in some circumstances, replaces some of the existing knowledge. Kolb and Fry placed this idea of reflection into a timeline. A new experience comes in. You see something, you're involved in something, You hear something. You then reflect on how that information aligns with your existing knowledge. Abstraction is the process in which you ask the internal question, am I going to modify my existing knowledge, values, attitudes, or the way I do things? Am I going to adopt the new information or reject it? Finally, active testing refers to using that new information in solving problems and making decisions. Client self-reflection is discovery. You're asking your client to reflect on his or her past. You're asking them to reflect on that information that was handed down to them during their economic socialization, which may reflect cultural norms, group, or family pressures. And they have an impact on values and beliefs. You're asking them to think about their vision for the future, to think about how they think and reason, for example, cognitive biases and heuristics, and the meaning behind their emotions. There are numerous applications of critical reflection in working with clients. These include asking the client to reflect on their money tapes, particularly those which may no longer be working for them. Self-sabotaging behaviors, for example, buying or selling at the wrong time, failure to maintain disciplined savings, over and underspending, the need to move out of the comfort zone, level of risk aversion, and life transitions. Let me summarize our discussion by sharing with you Mesereau and Associates' theory of transformative learning. Transformative learning is set in motion by some disorienting dilemma. What he meant by disorienting dilemma was that something that the client experienced, a problem or concern, they didn't know how to solve. Their knowledge base or their cognitive process wasn't sufficient to deal with the dilemma or to get beyond a concern. As the individual starts to reflect upon this and starts to examine their beliefs and cognitive processes, and perhaps even engage in reflective discourse, perhaps a conversation with you, the planner, a support group, or a learning community, new information comes in. If the individual incorporates some of that information from those discussions or upon that reflection, then the cognitive process has changed. The new knowledge leads to behavioral change. The new knowledge enables the individual to deal now with this disorienting dilemma. The outcome is a transformation. All of the principles of adult learning theory can help us move our clients towards this growth, this transformation. However, reflection is clearly at the core of transformative learning. In this lesson, you learned about principles of adult learning theory that can directly be used in communicating and working with our clients.